Next question. We were just told by our pharmacist that his pharmacy is leaving our plan's network. What does that mean to me? I got this question so many times this year. I think more than I've ever gotten it this year. And the answer has been basically misunderstanding what's going on here. And without getting into the names of the companies, let me tell you what's happening. There are two different kinds of networks when we're talking about prescriptions, and this is a prescription drug question. There are preferred networks, there are standard networks. Not every plan has both of these networks, but a lot of popular plans, and they're popular because they have such low drug costs, have two different networks. When you see advertisements on TV or in the news or on the radio about a prescription drug plan's low drug prices, aside from the fact that you should definitely check to see if the drugs you're talking about are part of those prices, you are typically seeing the prices of a preferred network. There are other prices, and there could be a second network within that plan. But the preferred is generally what people think about or what people look at. So what happened this past year during the annual enrollment period is a very popular prescription drug plan announced that they were switching a pharmacy from a preferred network to a standard network. But the word somehow got convoluted or messed up. It's kind of like a game of telephone where you say one thing to the person on your left, and by the time it gets past 10 people and gets to the person on the right, it's something totally different. What happened was a great many people got misinformed and were convinced that their pharmacy, their large chain retail pharmacy, was not going to be covered by the prescription plan by this large insurance company. And basically it was two giants kind of duking it out, when really all that happened was they went from preferred status to standard status. Now, the most important thing to know when an insurance company goes from preferred network to standard network is that you will still have access to your drugs. Just because it is no longer a preferred pharmacy and is now a standard pharmacy does not mean you cannot get your drugs. You can still get your drugs. For Pete's sake, that is the most important thing. I assure you, to the insurance company, not just to, if you're my client, to me, but to the insurance company as well. And I can speak for just about any insurance company. The most important thing to them is that their policyholders have access to the prescriptions that they need. So you will still be able to get your drug if your insurance, if you are going to a network pharmacy, be it preferred or standard. Now, if they actually leave the network, like this person's question, we were told by our pharmacist that his pharmacy is leaving our plan's network. Every single time I got that question, it was between the same two people, between the same insurance company and the same pharmacy. I know exactly what happened. They did not leave the network. There is a potential the pharmacy could leave the network, or the insurance plan could drop the network. Most retail pharmacies, especially the large chain ones, they are going to do everything in their power to make sure that they can accept as many cards as they can, even if it's not favorable, even if it's the standard network, not the preferred. They're going to do everything they can to make sure that they can at least take it as a standard network. Small pharmacies generally try to do everything they can as well, although they can be a little bit more flexible based on their specific needs and their clientele. They basically have a little bit more freedom and flexibility to say, okay, we are not going to take plans A, B, and C because. But these plans, where this question came from, the origins of this question, the insurance would still work, but they went from preferred to standard. If you get some sort of question from your prescription plan or some sort of notice saying that they are leaving the network, check and see if that means are they leaving the preferred network, but they will still be part of the standard. Now, the next thing to do is to contact the insurance company, not the pharmacy. Ask the insurance company for verification. If you call me, I can give you the answer. And I did give the answer this time many times. Like I say, I keep going back to a surprising amount. It's been almost a month, and I'm still surprised the number of people that have called about this same thing independently of one another. But call the insurance company for independent verification. The insurance company still wants to be valuable to you. If they say that, yes, you can still go to this place and you're going to get it as a standard pharmacy instead of a preferred pharmacy, we're going to get to that next, but that's the next portion, is to decide, is it worth it to keep your pharmacy or change your pharmacy? But check with the insurance company, because the insurance company is always the gatekeeper. The insurance company is your gatekeeper, not the pharmacy itself. This is the same advice I have to find out if insurance is taken by your doctor. It's contrary to common sense and contrary to what you might think, but the last people you want to actually ask is your doctor. You want to ask the insurance company if the insurance is taken by that doctor. The reason why is because if you just ask your doctor's office, do you take company A? Well, company A could be an extraordinarily large insurance company, and these insurance companies have 20, 30 different networks, sometimes even more. So it's important to actually ask the insurance company, because they're going to look up by your customer number, by your member ID, and they're going to know from that member ID what network you're in, and then they would be able to say whether or not your doctor takes the plan. It's the same thing with prescription drugs. The prescription drug plan is the one who's going to be able to tell you whether or not the prescription drug plan itself is taken by the insurance, and if it is, is it going to be a preferred network or a standard network? So that's the next thing. Now, the next part of this is, what is the cost difference between going to a preferred network and a standard network? This year, for this particular company that's involved, the biggest changes happen to actually be for generic drugs. For brand drugs, this company I'm thinking of, or that I had this issue with, the cost is actually fairly close to the same. Even the retail cost was close to the same. The percentage copay that you'd pay for a brand drug was just about the same whether you were at a preferred pharmacy or a standard. So our clients who had a bunch of expensive preferred drugs, their pharmacy switch from preferred to standard didn't really mean anything to them. Now, the clients, however, that had a whole bunch of generic drugs, the preferred copay may have been $2-3, but the standard pharmacy copay could have been $10 or $12. If you have 2 or 3 drugs, that could be fairly significant. They could still get those drugs at the standard pharmacy, but they would pay more. Insurance, remember this, insurance does not stop you from having access to the drugs, they just make it affordable. So if you stayed at that same pharmacy that went from preferred to standard, you would still be able to get those drugs, but you would pay more. You would pay more than you most likely did last year, and you would pay more than what is probably the advertised price, although you do have the price for that drug available to you. It is listed in your summary of benefits, your annual notice of change, under the standard pharmacy instead of the preferred pharmacy. But If you really want to get your best price, you have an economic incentive to move to what is going to be the preferred pharmacy for this coming year. What does that mean? That means that you get your prescriptions transferred and you change pharmacies. How much value is that to you? That is actually where the most interesting discussion came from with the prescriptions. And the reason why is because a pharmacist is a very important tool to a client's overall health. A pharmacist is very important in making sure that a person is getting the drug that they're supposed to get. They're basically the doctor being the first line, the last line, before you get a prescription, before you get your hands on a prescription, to make sure that the prescription is safe to you, is the pharmacist. Changing a plan's network from standard to from preferred to standard means you may need to change if you want to stay with a preferred network. That means you will most likely change pharmacists. For some people, that is a very emotional, understandably, a very emotional issue to go through, and you may not want to do it. And I understand that. I've gone through similar stuff like that myself, and I understand the need to stay with a pharmacist you trust, because the pharmacist's job is so incredibly important to you. Like I say, they can be your last line of defense between a bad drug interaction. So I get that. But if the insurance is going to if your insurance is going to change from standard to preferred, and you want to keep your insurance, and you want to get your best price, you have to change your pharmacy. If your most important thing is to stay at that pharmacy and that pharmacy changes status, you are going to change your insurance. That is the level that we have to go through, and that's kind of the cycle of interdependence that we have to look at for a decision to be made as to whether or not you need to just change your pharmacy, you need to kind of just let everything lie and stay as it is, or you need to change your insurance. So that's where this comes in. But when the pharmacist tells you that their pharmacy is leaving the plan's network, going back to the original question, as you know, I tend to pontificate on these things. If they're leaving the plan's network, find out, are they leaving the preferred network? Are they leaving the standard network? Or are they dropping your insurance entirely? Sometimes that means a second question. When in doubt, ask your broker if you have one. If you don't have one, contact the company. Your first line of information as to where your plan is going to be taken, the first place to go to find out where your insurance can be used is your insurance company. So check those first. If it turns out that, your pharmacy is going to be making a change in its network status from where you are currently getting your prescription, find out if it's worth it to change financially. Then find out if it's if that financial incentive is large enough for you to make the move, and if it's not large enough to make the move, find out if you can find comparable coverage so you could stay at the pharmacy you want to stay at. That is the circle that you need for prescription coverage to make sure that you are getting the best price and the access that you need at the places you want to have it.